The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Deho had ever seen. Representatives from over 200 species sat in curved rows rising up from the center floor. Their various eyes, tentacles, and sensory organs were all focused on him as he walked to the witness stand. 3 weeks had passed since the incident on Stellar Harmony. The captured Krex operatives had revealed the locations of secret military bases and plans for future invasions. The galaxy was still processing the shocking revelations about both human capabilities and Krex intentions. "State your name and occupation for the record," said Counselor Prime Thexani, a tall crystalline being who served as the Council's leader. "Park Deho, cargo hauler and former resistance fighter," Deho replied. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "You have been called to testify about the nature of human adaptation during the Krex conflict 25 years ago," Thexani continued. "Please tell the Council about your experiences." Deho looked up at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. Some showed curiosity, others fear, many showed respect. He touched the scar on his face unconsciously, then began to speak. "I want you to understand something about scars," he said. "Every species in this chamber knows about injury and healing. When you get hurt, your body repairs the damage. Sometimes it leaves a mark to remind you of what happened." He rolled up his sleeve to show the burn scar from the Krex plasma weapon. "This scar reminds me of the day I failed to save 30 children from a collapsed school. The Krex patrol found us before we could get them all out." The chamber was completely silent. Even the usual whispers and electronic translations had stopped. "But this scar also reminds me that I saved 20 children that day," Deho continued. "I learned from that failure. The next time I saved 50 children. The time after that I saved 100. He showed them other scars, each with its story. The metal fragments in his back taught him to check for structural damage before entering bombed buildings. The blade wound on his ribs taught him new fighting techniques. The surgical scars taught him field medicine that saved countless lives. "Humans don't just heal from trauma," he explained. "We learn from it. We grow stronger from it. We use our pain to help others avoid the same pain." Counselor Yeldana of the Velthari leaned forward. "But how did an entire species develop this adaptation?" "Because we had no choice," Deho replied. "When the Krex came, we could either break or adapt. Those who broke didn't survive. Those who adapted became stronger." He gestured toward the Krex delegation now sitting under heavy guard. "Your species made a mistake. You thought breaking human civilization would make us surrender. Instead, it made us unbreakable." Dr. Tanaka had been invited to present her medical findings to the Council. She stood at the scientific testimony station with her data displays activated. "The human survivors show remarkable biological adaptations," she reported. "Enhanced pain tolerance, improved healing rates, increased neural plasticity, and most importantly, psychological resilience that exceeds all known species parameters." The holographic displays showed brain scans, muscle tissue analysis, and stress response measurements. The data painted a picture of humans who had been fundamentally changed by their ordeal. "But these adaptations didn't make humans aggressive or violent," Dr. Tanaka continued. "Instead, they developed enhanced empathy and protective instincts. They became more determined to prevent suffering, not cause it." Ambassador Kexhal of the Centauri Alliance stood to ask a question. "If humans possess these capabilities, why maintain the deception? Why not reveal your strength openly?" Captain Lee So-young answered from the military testimony section. "Because strength without trust leads to fear. Fear leads to conflict. We wanted to build relationships first, prove our peaceful intentions, then reveal our capabilities when the galaxy needed protection." She activated her own display showing the human defensive network throughout the galaxy, trade routes protected by human merchants who could fight, colonies positioned to defend weaker species, diplomatic missions building alliances against aggression. Every human position was chosen to protect other species, not to threaten them, she explained. "We learned that the best way to ensure our own safety was to ensure everyone's safety." The Krex ambassador, Thekmore, was given a chance to respond. He stood in chains, his insect-like features twisted with anger. "You speak of protection and peace," he said in his grinding voice, "but you have built a military network that spans the galaxy. You have deceived every species here. How can they trust you now?" Deho stood up from the witness chair. "Because every scar on my body represents someone I tried to save, not someone I tried to hurt. Because every human in the galaxy carries the same scars and the same commitment." He walked closer to the Krex ambassador. You want to know the difference between your species and mine? When you found opposition, you tried to destroy it. When we found opposition, we learned from it and became better. The vote was not even close. The Galactic Council voted to formally censure the Krex Empire and investigate their military activities. They also voted to recognize Earth's defensive network as a legitimate peacekeeping force. More importantly, they voted to establish new protocols for protecting emerging civilizations from aggressive expansion. The human experience would become a model for helping other species survive and adapt to threats. After the vote, Deho found himself surrounded by representatives from dozens of worlds. They wanted to learn about human resilience, human tactics, human approaches to surviving trauma. "Will you teach our security forces?" asked Commander Torval of the Hegemony. "Will you help us prepare our colonies for defense?" asked Administrator Wellmis of the Velthari. "Will you share your medical techniques for treating trauma survivors?" asked Dr. Hexlar of the Centauri Medical Corps. Deho looked around at all the hopeful faces. "I'm just a cargo hauler," he said with a smile. "But I know people who can help with all of those things." 6 months later, Deho was back on Stellar Harmony, delivering another shipment of medical supplies. But this time was different. The station had been expanded into a training facility where humans taught other species about survival, resilience, and defensive strategies. Dr. Tanaka had established a medical research center studying trauma adaptation. Captain Lee commanded a multi-species peacekeeping force. Even Kim Dong-woo and Han Ji-won had revealed their true roles and were training alien operatives in intelligence gathering and technological security. Deho walked through the same security checkpoint where his journey had begun. But now the scanners didn't trigger alarms. They simply recorded his identity and noted his status as a galactic peace instructor. Korvash, the 6-armed security chief, greeted him with what passed for a smile among his species. "Welcome back, Teacher Deho." "Just Deho is fine," he replied. "The Velthari students are eager for their next lesson on urban survival," Korvash said. "They've never encountered anyone who learned to thrive in destroyed cities." "I'll teach them what I can," Deho said. "But the most important lesson isn't about tactics or weapons." "What is it?" Deho touched his scars one more time. But now the gesture was different. The marks weren't reminders of pain anymore. They were symbols of growth, learning, and the determination to help others. "The most important lesson is that survival isn't about becoming hard enough to avoid being hurt," he said. "It's about becoming strong enough to heal from anything, and wise enough to help others heal too." He looked out through the station's massive windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human teachers were working with alien students, sharing the lessons learned from Earth's darkest decade. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was becoming a little bit safer because humans had refused to let their scars make them bitter. The scanner had once marked him as impossible to kill. Now he understood that the real miracle wasn't his survival. It was that his people had survived with their compassion intact. The stars looked different now. Not like distant, dangerous places, but like homes waiting to be protected. And protection was what humans did best because they knew the true cost of losing it. His scars had healed, but they had never disappeared. They were reminders of where he came from, what he had learned, and what he was still fighting for. Not conquest or dominance, but the simple right of every species to heal from their wounds and grow stronger from their struggles. The galaxy was learning to carry its own scars with pride. The maintenance corridors of Stellar Harmony were narrow and filled with pipes and cables. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the metal walls. Deho moved through this maze like he had been born in it, his enhanced senses tracking the Krex operatives ahead of him. Behind him, Captain Lee So-young moved with equal skill. Her military training was obvious in every step she took. Into her communication device, she whispered, "Alpha 2, report position." Dock level, covering the main entrance, came a voice Deho recognized. It was Kim Dong-woo, a merchant who ran a small trading post near the Krex border. Deho had met him several times but never suspected he was anything other than a simple businessman. "Alpha 3? Captain Lee asked. "Engineering section, ready to cut power if needed." This voice belonged to Han Ji-won, a young woman who worked maintenance on various space stations. Her innocent appearance had fooled everyone. "How many humans are on this station?" Deho asked quietly. 8 operatives plus you and me," Captain Lee replied. We've been watching this location for 2 years. They reached a junction in the corridor. Daeho held up his hand, signaling Captain Lee to stop. His enhanced hearing detected the sound of Krek's armor moving just around the corner. He could count their footsteps, estimate their weapons, even smell the metallic scent of their equipment. 2 targets 30 meters ahead, he whispered, moving toward the central hub. Can you handle them quietly? Daeho touched one of his many scars, remembering the years of fighting in Seoul's ruins. I learned to be very quiet. He moved around the corner like a shadow. The first Krek's operative never knew what hit him. Daeho's police training combined with his war experience made him deadly in close combat. The alien went down without making a sound. The second operative turned toward the noise, but Daeho was already behind him. Years of fighting the Kreks had taught him their weaknesses. He knew exactly where to strike to disable their armor systems. Clear, he whispered into Captain Lee's communication device. They continued through the corridors, following the trail of the remaining operatives. As they moved, Captain Lee explained more about Earth's hidden preparations. After the ceasefire, Earth's government made a public show of peaceful integration, she said. We signed trade agreements, opened diplomatic relations, sent humans to work throughout the galaxy as merchants and technicians. But it was all cover, Daeho realized. The merchants gather intelligence on Krek's military movements. The technicians install monitoring equipment and backdoor access systems. The diplomats build alliances with other species who have suffered under Krek's aggression. They reached another junction. This time, the sound of plasma fire echoed through the corridors ahead of them. Someone was fighting. Alpha 4, report, Captain Lee said urgently. Under fire near the guest quarters, came the strained reply. 3 hostiles, heavy weapons. On our way, Captain Lee responded. To Daeho, she said, ready for a real fight? Always. They rounded the corner to find chaos. A Krek's operative in full combat armor was firing plasma bolts at a human who had taken cover behind an overturned table. The human was returning fire with a stolen Krek's weapon, but he was outnumbered and outgunned. Daeho didn't hesitate. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to move faster than the Krek's could track. He rolled across the open space, drawing their fire away from his fellow human. While they were distracted, Captain Lee flanked them from the other side. The fight was brief but intense. Plasma bolts scorched the walls and ceiling. The smell of burned metal filled the air. But the Krek's operatives had made a critical error. They expected to face normal humans with limited combat ability. Instead, they faced survivors of a 10-year war who had learned to fight with nothing and win with everything. When the shooting stopped, all 3 Kreks lay unconscious on the floor. The human who had been pinned down stood up and saluted Captain Lee. Alpha 4 reporting. Target secured. What target? Daeho asked. The operative pointed to a doorway behind the overturned table. Through it, Daeho could see Ambassador Thekmore bound and gagged in a chair. We captured him when his operatives started their illegal infiltration, Captain Lee explained. He was coordinating the attack from here. Is that legal under galactic law? Daeho asked. Completely legal. He entered the station under diplomatic immunity, then used that status to coordinate a military operation. That's an act of war. They secured the area and waited for station security to arrive. When Korvash appeared with his officers, he stared at the scene with amazement. How did you defeat trained Krek's commandos so easily? He asked. Training, Captain Lee replied simply. 25 years of very intensive training. Within hours, word of the incident had spread throughout the galaxy. The security recordings showed humans moving with impossible speed and skill. Fighting techniques that no other species had seen before. Technology that seemed far beyond what Earth was supposed to possess. Dr. Tanaka was analyzing the combat footage in her laboratory. These reflexes are beyond normal human capabilities, she told Velnus over the communication system. And their weapons? Those aren't standard galactic designs. Human designs, Captain Lee confirmed when asked about the weapons. We've been developing new technology based on lessons learned during the war. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered to discuss what they had learned about humanity. The peaceful trading species they thought they knew had revealed capabilities that changed everything. How many humans like these are there? Asked Ambassador Yeldana of the Velthari. Captain Lee stood before the assembled delegates. Every human who survived the Krek's War has similar capabilities. Some are merchants, some are technicians, some are diplomats. All are trained soldiers, and how many survived this war? asked Counselor Morteth of the hegemony. 2 billion. The number caused shocked murmurs throughout the assembly. 2 billion humans, all with combat training. All with scars like Dehos. All scattered throughout the galaxy in positions where they could monitor, influence, and if necessary, fight. This changes the balance of power significantly, observed Administrator Kexhall of the Centauri Alliance. It doesn't have to, Captain Lee replied. Humans don't want conquest or domination. We want to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens to any other world. She activated a holographic display showing star maps with human colonies, trade routes, and diplomatic positions. Every human settlement in the galaxy is positioned to protect shipping lanes or defend smaller species from aggression. Every human trader monitors potential threats. Every human diplomat works to build peaceful alliances. A defensive network, Velnus realized. The largest defensive network in galactic history, Captain Lee confirmed. Built not for conquest but for protection. Ambassador Thekmore, now freed but under heavy guard, spoke from his position at the defendants' table. You have deceived the entire galaxy. You have violated the terms of the peace accords. We have protected the galaxy from you, Captain Lee replied coldly. Your species has destroyed 17 civilizations in the past century. You were planning to test 18 more worlds next year, including the Velthari homeworld. The Velthari delegation gasped in shock. Their species was known for its peaceful nature and advanced science. How do you know this? Ambassador Yeldana asked. Captain Lee smiled grimly. Because humans have been watching Krek's military preparations for 15 years. We know about your test protocols. We know about your target lists. We know about your plans for galactic expansion. The session erupted in angry voices from multiple species. The Krek's empire had been presenting itself as a legitimate government, while secretly planning the destruction of dozens of worlds. Through it all, Deho sat quietly in the witness section. His scars no longer seemed like marks of weakness or damage. They were proof of human resilience, human determination, and human refusal to let evil triumph. The galaxy was learning that Earth had not just survived the Krek's test. Earth had turned that test into the foundation for something much larger and more powerful than anyone had imagined. The next morning brought bad news. Station Administrator Velnus, a tall Centauri with blue skin and silver hair, called an emergency meeting. She sat across from Deho, Dr. Tanaka, and Korvash in her office overlooking the main trading floor. The Krek's empire has made their position very clear, Velnus said, her voice tired. They are threatening to end all trade agreements with this station if we don't cooperate with their research request. Through the office windows, Deho could see the busy trading floor below. Merchants from dozens of worlds were buying and selling goods worth millions of credits. The space station employed thousands of beings and served as a vital hub for galactic commerce. How much trade would we lose? Dr. Tanaka asked. 40% of our total volume, Velnus replied. The Krek's empire controls trade routes to half the galaxy. If they blacklist us, we would have to close the station within months. Korvash shifted uncomfortably in his chair. There must be alternatives. I've been in contact with other station administrators, Velnus said. The Kreks have made similar threats to them. They want this human very badly. Deho had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. I'll go with them. Absolutely not, Dr. Tanaka said immediately. It's my choice, Deho replied. I won't let thousands of innocent people lose their jobs because of me. Before anyone could respond, Velnus's communication device chimed. She listened for a moment, then looked surprised. A ship has just arrived requesting emergency docking clearance. It's registered to the Earth Diplomatic Corps. 20 minutes later, Captain Lee So-young entered the administrator's office. She was a tall Korean woman in her late 30s, wearing the dark blue uniform of Earth's military. Her bearing was straight and confident, like someone used to command. Captain Lee, Velnus said politely, we weren't expecting Earth diplomatic involvement. Earth monitors all situations involving our citizens, Captain Lee replied. Her eyes found Deho and studied him carefully, especially when those situations involve the Krek's empire. You know about our history with them? Deho asked. I know everything about our history with them, Captain Lee said. I was there during the final battles on Earth. She turned to address the group. What I'm about to tell you is classified information, but recent events make disclosure necessary. The Krek's invasion of Earth 25 years ago was not their first attempt to test human capabilities. Dr. Tanaka leaned forward. What do you mean? The Kreks have a pattern, Captain Lee explained. They identify worlds with emerging civilizations. They attack without warning to gauge military capabilities and psychological resilience. If the species surrenders quickly, they incorporate them as slave workers. If the species shows potential, they study them more carefully. And if the species fights back too effectively, Korvash asked, they destroy the world completely. The room fell silent. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. Then why is Earth still intact? Captain Lee smiled grimly. Because humans surprised them. Every other species they tested either surrendered within months or fought conventionally, until their militaries were destroyed. Humans did something different. She walked over to the window and looked down at the trading floor. When conventional warfare failed, humans adapted. They became guerrilla fighters. They learned to use Krek's technology against them. They developed new tactics, new weapons, new ways of surviving. The resistance movements, Deho said quietly. Exactly. The Kreks expected broken survivors begging for mercy. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that got stronger with each battle. An enemy that learned from every defeat and came back harder. Dr. Tanaka was taking notes on her portable device. So the 10-year war was actually a test? The first part was a test, Captain Lee confirmed. But after 5 years, the Kreks realized they had made a serious mistake. They had created an enemy they couldn't easily defeat. The war continued for 5 more years because they were trying to find a way to destroy us without losing too many of their own forces. Velnus looked confused. But the official records show peaceful first contact 15 years ago. That's when the Kreks finally agreed to a ceasefire, Captain Lee said. They offered us a choice. Join the galactic community as a minor trading partner, or face complete annihilation from their full military force. So Earth accepted the terms to avoid genocide, Korvash concluded. Earth's government accepted those terms, Captain Lee corrected. But the survivors of the war made their own preparations. Deho was beginning to understand. The people like me, the ones with scars. The people like you are Earth's real strength, Captain Lee said. 2 billion humans who learned to survive anything, who learned to fight with nothing and win, who learned to turn trauma into strength. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Korvash's communication device activated with an urgent message. Security breach in Section 7. Krek's operatives have entered the station illegally. They're moving early, Captain Lee said grimly. They must have decided not to wait for diplomatic approval. Through the office windows, they could see people running on the trading floor below. Security officers were moving quickly through the crowds, trying to maintain order. Where is Section 7? Deho asked. Near the guest quarters, Velnus replied. They're coming for you. Captain Lee opened a case she had brought with her. Inside was a small device that looked like a medical scanner. Mr. Park, I need you to place your hand on this scanner. Why? Because if you're really one of our survivors, this device will activate systems you don't even know you have. Deho placed his hand on the scanner. It beeped softly, then projected a small holographic display. Lines of text appeared in Korean, too fast for the others to read. What does it say? Dr. Tanaka asked. Captain Lee read the display with satisfaction. It says that Park Deho, former Seoul Metropolitan Police Resistance Fighter designation Ghost 7, is cleared for full operational status. Operational status? Deho asked. The implants they gave you during the war, Captain Lee explained. Enhanced reflexes, improved situational awareness, accelerated healing, pain suppression. They've been dormant for 15 years, but they're still functional. Deho felt something changing in his body. His vision became sharper. Sounds became clearer. He could hear the footsteps of security officers 3 floors below. He could sense the exact positions of everyone in the room without looking at them. How many Krek's operatives are on the station? He asked, his voice different now, more focused. Korvash checked his security monitors. At least 6 that we've detected. They're moving through the maintenance corridors toward this section. Armed? Standard Krek's military equipment. Plasma rifles, combat armor, personal shields. Deho stood up and moved toward the door. His movements were fluid and controlled like a predator preparing to hunt. Where are you going? Dr. Tanaka asked. To end this before innocent people get hurt, he replied. Captain Lee smiled. Good, but you won't be going alone. She activated her own communication device. Team Alpha, this is Captain Lee. We have authorization for full deployment. Team Alpha? Velnus asked. The other humans on this station, Captain Lee said. Did you think we'd let one of our people travel alone in Krek's territory? The reality of Earth's deception was becoming clear. Humans weren't just peaceful traders scattered across the galaxy. They were a network of trained survivors watching and waiting. And now the Kreks were about to learn what they had really created during their 10-year test of humanity. 3 hours later, Daiho sat in a small white room with Dr. Tanaka and Korvash. The security chief had moved him here while they waited for the Kreks representative to arrive. The room had no windows, just bright lights and a table with 3 chairs. I need to understand what happened to you, Dr. Tanaka said gently. She had brought a portable medical scanner and was taking more detailed readings. The galaxy needs to know if there are more humans like you. Daiho stared at his hands on the table. His knuckles were covered with small scars. You won't find this information in any official records. Why not? Korvash asked. His 4 eyes studied Daiho carefully. Because Earth's government doesn't want anyone to know the truth about first contact, Daiho replied. He was quiet for a long moment, then began to speak. 25 years ago, Daiho had been a police officer in Seoul. He worked with the Special Weapons and Tactics team, responding to dangerous situations in the city. Life was normal then. Humans knew nothing about aliens or other worlds. Then the sky caught fire. The Krek ships appeared without warning over every major city on Earth. They were huge black vessels that blocked out the sun. The first attacks came within hours. Bright energy beams lanced down from the ships, turning buildings into glass and ash. I was at the police station when it started, Daiho said, his voice distant with memory. The whole building shook like an earthquake. When we ran outside, half of downtown Seoul was gone. The Kreks didn't want to negotiate or communicate. They simply began destroying human civilization. Their energy weapons melted steel and concrete. Their ground forces moved through the ruins, killing anyone who resisted. Earth's military fought back, but their weapons were useless against Krek's technology. Missiles exploded harmlessly against enemy shields. Bullets bounced off alien armor. Within weeks, most of the world's armies were destroyed. The government officials who could escape went underground. Daiho continued. They told the survivors that help was coming, that other countries would send aid. But there was no help coming. The Kreks had hit everywhere at once. Dr. Tanaka listened with growing horror. This isn't what our records show. According to galactic databases, humanity made peaceful first contact with the Kreks 15 years ago. Daiho gave a bitter laugh. That's what Earth's government wants everyone to believe. The truth is much uglier. For 10 years, the survivors fought back however they could. They lived in the ruins of their cities, hiding in sewers and underground tunnels. They learned to move at night, to avoid the Kreks patrols, to find food and medicine in the wreckage. Daiho learned these lessons the hard way. He showed Dr. Tanaka a long scar on his arm. Krek's plasma weapon. I was trying to rescue civilians from a collapsed school. A patrol found us. The burn had gone all the way to the bone. With no hospitals functioning, another survivor had treated the wound with stolen medical supplies and a bottle of liquor. No anesthesia, no proper tools, just determination to live. This one, he said, pointing to a mark on his shoulder, is from shrapnel when they bombed the subway tunnel we were using as a shelter. I was buried under concrete for 18 hours before my team dug me out. Each scar had a story. The mark on his ribs was from a Krek's blade during hand-to-hand combat in the ruins of a hospital. The small holes in his back were from metal fragments when an ammunition depot exploded. The surgical scars along his spine were from an operation performed in a basement, using tools stolen from a veterinary clinic. How did you survive for 10 years? Korvash asked. His species was known for their toughness, but even he sounded amazed. We adapted, Daiho said simply. Humans are good at adapting. When the Kreks destroyed our technology, we learned to live without it. When they hunted us with sensors, we learned to hide. When they used weapons against us, we learned to use their own weapons against them. The resistance movement grew slowly. Small groups learned to communicate with each other through hidden radio networks. They shared information about Krek's patrol patterns, weak points in their equipment, and ways to sabotage their operations. Daiho's police training made him valuable to the resistance. He knew how to fight, how to plan operations, and how to work as part of a team. But the war changed him. Each battle left new scars, and each loss of friends left emotional wounds that never fully healed. The worst part wasn't the fighting. he said quietly. It was watching people give up, watching families torn apart, watching children grow up knowing nothing but war. Dr. Tanaka's scanner beeped softly as it recorded his vital signs. Even talking about these memories caused stress responses in his body. His heart rate increased and old injuries sent phantom pain through his nervous system. The door to the room opened suddenly. A tall figure in dark armor entered, followed by two smaller guards. This was the Krek's representative, Ambassador Tekmor. His species looked like enormous insects with hard shells and multiple arms ending in sharp claws. So this is the impossible human, Tekmor said in a voice like grinding metal. His translator device made his words understandable, but the tone was cold and dangerous. Korvash stood up quickly. Ambassador, thank you for coming. We wanted to discuss the security situation. There is no discussion needed, Tekmor replied. This human represents a security threat to the station. My government demands that he be turned over for proper study. Study? Dr. Tanaka asked. What kind of study? The kind that will help us understand how a primitive species managed to resist our forces for so long, the ambassador answered. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Most species surrender within days. Some fight for weeks. But he looked directly at Deho. Humans fought for 10 years. Deho met the alien's gaze without flinching. We fought because you gave us no choice. You fought because you are too stupid to recognize superior force, Tekmor snapped. But your resistance taught us valuable lessons. We want to learn more about human durability. Your scars will provide excellent research material. He's not going anywhere with you, Dr. Tanaka said firmly. Tekmor turned his attention to her. Dr. Tanaka, your government signed the Galactic Peace Accords. Those accords give us the right to investigate potential security threats. This human clearly represents such a threat. The peace accords also protect individual rights, Korvash pointed out. Not when galactic security is involved, the Krek's ambassador replied. We will give the station administrators 24 hours to comply with our request. After that, we will be forced to take other measures. He turned and left the room with his guards, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence. Dr. Tanaka looked at her scanner readings again. There's something I need to tell you, she said to Deho. Based on these scans, you're not unique among humans, are you? Deho shook his head slowly. Most of the people who survived the war have scars like mine. 2 billion humans died during the fighting. The ones who lived, we all learned to endure things that should have killed us. 2 billion? Korvash whispered. The official report said the human population was always around 2 billion. It was 8 billion before the war, Deho said quietly. Earth's government has been very careful about what information gets shared with the galaxy. Dr. Tanaka realized the implications immediately. If Deho was representative of human survivors, then Earth's population consisted of 2 billion people who had all been forged by a decade of impossible warfare. People who had learned to survive anything. Outside the room, she could hear the sounds of the busy space station continuing its normal operations. But nothing felt normal anymore. The massive space station called Stellar Harmony floated in the darkness like a giant metal flower. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went through its docking bays every hour. Aliens with blue skin, purple tentacles, and crystal bodies walked through the wide corridors, conducting business and making deals. Park Deho guided his old cargo ship toward Docking Bay 7. The Soul's Pride had seen better days. Its hull was scratched and dented from years of hauling freight across the galaxy. Deho didn't mind the ship's rough appearance. It had served him well for the past 5 years since he started working as an independent hauler. The 42-year-old human ran his hand through his graying hair as he waited for docking clearance. His weathered face showed the lines of someone who had lived through difficult times. A thin scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, barely visible unless someone looked closely. Cargo vessel Soul's Pride, you are cleared for docking, came the voice through his communication system. The speaker was a Velthari, one of the tall, thin aliens who managed most of the station's operations. Deho guided his ship into the docking bay with practiced ease. The mechanical arms extended and locked his vessel in place. He powered down the engines and gathered his identification papers. Every visitor to Stellar Harmony had to pass through security before entering the main station. The security checkpoint was a long white room filled with scanning equipment. Daiho had been through similar checkpoints dozens of times on different stations. He knew the routine. Remove any metal object, stand in the scanner, wait for the all-clear signal. A large alien with 6 arms stood behind the control panel. This was Korvash, the station's security chief. His species, the hegemony, took security very seriously. Their 4 eyes could see in multiple spectrums, and their extra arms made them excellent at operating complex equipment. State your name and business, Korvash said in heavily accented standard Galactic. Park Daiho, cargo hauler. I'm delivering medical supplies to the Centauri embassy, Daiho replied, holding out his papers. Korvash took the documents with one hand while operating the scanner controls with his other arms. Step into the scanning chamber. Daiho walked into the cylindrical chamber and stood still. He had done this so many times he could do it with his eyes closed. The scanner hummed quietly as it examined his body for weapons, diseases, and other threats. Then the alarm started. A piercing sound filled the security area. Red lights flashed on every panel. The scanner's hum became a high-pitched whine. Other aliens in the checkpoint area looked around in confusion and fear. Korvash's 4 eyes went wide as he stared at his control panel. All 6 of his arms moved frantically over the controls, trying to understand what was happening. This cannot be correct, he muttered. What's wrong? Daiho asked from inside the scanner. The alarms were loud enough to hurt his ears. The scanner is showing impossible readings, Korvash said. Please remain still while I investigate. The security chief pressed several buttons, but the alarms continued. Other security officers came running. A crowd of curious aliens gathered at a safe distance, their various eyes and sensory organs focused on the human in the scanner. After 5 minutes of chaos, Korvash finally shut down the scanner. The alarm stopped, but the red warning lights continued flashing. I must call for assistance, he announced. Please step out of the chamber, but do not leave this area. Daiho stepped out, feeling confused and slightly embarrassed. He had never caused problems at security checkpoints before. Did I do something wrong? Before Korvash could answer, a new voice spoke from behind them. What seems to be the trouble here? Everyone turned to see a human woman approaching. She was younger than Daiho, probably in her 30s, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. She wore the white coat of a station medical officer. Dr. Tanaka, Korvash said with relief in his voice. The scanning equipment is malfunctioning. It shows impossible biological readings for this human. Dr. Yuki Tanaka walked over to the control panel and studied the displays. Her expression grew more serious as she read the data. These aren't malfunctions, she said quietly. May I see the detailed scan results? Korvash manipulated the controls, bringing up a 3-dimensional image of Daiho's body. The image showed his skeleton, organs, and tissue in different colors. But what made everyone gasp were the hundreds of small marks scattered throughout the display. What are all those dots? Asked one of the security officers. Dr. Tanaka pointed at different areas of the scan. Healed bone fractures, metal fragments embedded in muscle tissue, scar tissue from severe burns, surgical scars from operations performed without proper medical equipment. She looked at Daiho with new interest. This man has survived trauma that would kill most beings. The crowd of aliens began whispering among themselves. Some moved closer to get a better look at Daiho, while others stepped back nervously. The computer's analysis is what triggered the alarms, Dr. Tanaka continued. Based on the pattern of injuries and healing, the system has classified him as having an impossibly high survivability rate. What does that mean? Daiho asked. He was starting to feel uncomfortable with all the attention. It means, Dr. Tanaka said slowly, that according to our medical databases, you should have died from your injuries multiple times. But not only did you survive, you appear to have grown stronger from each trauma. Korvash looked at his scanner readings again. The system has marked him as unkillable based on his medical history. The word spread through the crowd like wildfire. Unkillable human, they whispered in dozens of different languages. Some aliens took pictures with their various recording devices. Others sent messages to friends and colleagues throughout the station. Daiho felt his face growing red with embarrassment. Look, I'm just a cargo hauler. I deliver medical supplies and equipment. There's nothing special about me. But Dr. Tanaka was still studying the scan results. These injuries, they're not from accidents or normal hazards. This is a pattern of combat trauma. Long-term combat trauma. She looked up at Daiho with sharp eyes. Where did you get all these scars? Before Daiho could answer, Korvash's communication device buzzed. He listened for a moment, then his expression became worried. Dr. Tanaka, we have a problem. The security alert has been automatically transmitted to all embassies on the station. The Krex Empire's representative is requesting an immediate meeting about this incident. Dr. Tanaka's face went pale. The Krex Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their aggressive expansion and military strength. They were always interested in new weapons and ways to make their soldiers stronger. They want to study him, she whispered. Daiho looked around at all the faces staring at him. Aliens he didn't know were taking pictures and sending messages about him across the galaxy. His simple plan to deliver medical supplies and leave quietly had turned into something much more complicated and dangerous. He touched the scar on his face unconsciously, remembering how he had gotten it years ago on Earth. Those memories were locked away for good reasons. Now it seemed like his past was about to catch up with him in ways he had never imagined.